I, male, 49, and my wife Steph, female, 48, have one daughter, Julie, female, 20. Julie was a bit of a miracle baby, as my wife and I have been trying to conceive for a while. We had lost hope when Steph got pregnant with Julie. When she was born, my wife and I were ecstatic, and maybe we coddled her a little too much as she was growing up. Up until she was around 10 or 11, my wife and I worked around her wishes and gave her everything we could, be it toys, trips, or leeway for tantrums. However, for everyone's best interests, we drastically changed our parenting style to be a mix of between permissive and authoritative. Obviously, we should never have let it go so far, and Steph and I fully accept that it led to a rift between us and Julie. However, after this transition to a different parenting style, things seem to smooth over. Sometimes, though, I still saw a strain of entitlement in her, which set off alarm bells in my mind. During her teens, she grew a lot more distant from us and stopped sharing her life details with us. I mean, I get that this is a part of growing up, but it was even more alarming for us the fact that she stopped focusing on her future. As spoiled as we had made her in her childhood, Julie always had a certain amount of ambition for her future and looked at different careers with keen interest. We always supported these interests and never made her try anything she wasn't into. After all of that, though, she just stopped caring. It was tough to see, but Steph and I knew that being a teenager was tough and tried our best to be understanding. Whatever concerns we had were our own, and we didn't make Julie feel insecure or as if she wasn't enough. Besides, she did well in her academics and activities, and even without having much direction, hadn't fallen off the cliff. We just hoped that she would find her path, whatever field it may be. At the age of 16, Julie met a guy from high school, James. This was her first ever boyfriend, and Steph and I were nervous. However, he seemed like a nice enough guy and made Julie happy, or so we thought. The longer they dated, the more toxic their relationship got. James became kind of a party animal and took Julie along for the ride. Her GPA dropped and her ambition in life became just to coast along. However, where we drew the line was when she started using pot heavily. Now, I'm not a crazy guy who thinks that smoking a joint or two will ruin your life. I mean, I had fun in college, but James and Julie did this excessively. We first found out after our cleaning lady found a bong hidden under Julie's bed, and while she got smarter about hiding her stuff, it was pretty obvious what she was up to. Again, maybe because we were worried about the number of changes Julie had already dealt with as a kid, we were cautious about broaching these topics and had an intervention for her a week before her 17th birthday. Without being judgy, my wife and a few close relatives sat down and expressed our concern for her. She seemed to listen with an open mind, but the next morning, she wasn't in her room. All that was left was a letter saying she didn't feel understood here and had moved into an apartment with James, using whatever money she had saved up from part-time jobs. After asking her friends frantically, we at least knew her address and that she was doing okay. But any attempt at talking to her, whether in person or through text, was shut down. She had decided to cut off communication with us. Steph and I took this hard, and it felt like we had driven our daughter away. We spoke to a few counselors and child psychologists and found out that we were suffering from guilt mixed with empty nest syndrome. And the best way to work on it was to try and reestablish healthy communication with our kiddo. I took the initiative to drop her a call and told her clearly, Jules, we're sorry that our actions drove you away. I know that you may be going through a lot of stuff, and it's not easy to let your old man in. Your mother and I want you to come back, and we hope that you understand where we're coming from." Julie had a mixed reaction to this. While she was willing to accept our apology and was okay with visiting us often, she felt as though living alone would provide her with a sense of maturity and independence. It was a compromise that Steph and I had to take, and we were just glad to have her speak to us again. I still didn't like James, though. He may have started nice, but he just seemed like a bad egg to me. He also never really bothered bonding with us, and every attempt I had at trying to get to know him stopped at a dead end. Steph, who's a lot friendlier than I am, faced the same problem. In the months leading up to her 18th birthday, Julie began hinting heavily at attending college in our home state of Arizona, and also had plans of starting her own clothing business. It seemed like she had a game plan for the next few years, and we thought that maybe the distance between us had helped out after all. During that period, I ended up agonizing a little, wondering whether or not Steph and I were the problem, and sometimes I did feel like we were too smothering. As a sign of trust, on Julie's 18th birthday, Steph and I gave her a college fund. It was around $60,000 in total, and we told her that whether she went to college or started a business, as long as she had passion and happiness in her life, we were behind her 100%. She was really happy to hear this, and I saw James and her chattering away excitedly later on during the party. A week after this, I was catching up with Julie on the phone during breakfast and asked her what she planned on doing with the college fund. A little hesitantly, I heard her fumbling with the phone a bit, and then she said, "Dad, I want to marry James. We're going to have a big wedding like the one I've always wanted since I was a kid." I damn near dropped my sandwich because that's not what I expected at all. I probed by saying, "Honey, do you think that's the best idea? Can't you get married when you're a bit more, I don't know, settled? I mean, your mom and I would even chip in if you get married later, but do you want to use the fund now?" That led to another blow up from Julie, who said she felt attacked. I distinctly remember her ending the call by saying, "You're not coming to my wedding. I can use the money how I want, and the wedding is going to happen regardless." I immediately told Steph what had happened, and she was shocked. This was completely out of character with the Julie I had seen over the past couple of months. We never got an invite to the wedding, and only got to know of it after she posted a bunch of pictures and videos on her Facebook account. All the guests there were people I didn't know from around her age, and it looked more like a rager than a wedding. Not a single relative was invited to the wedding, it seems, and as soon after this, all we got was a curt text message from Julie specifying that James and she were moving to LA to settle down. Julie never reached out to us after that. Every attempt at contact got stonewalled. I can't even begin to tell you how betrayed Steph and I felt. It always felt like we were missing someone. However, Steph recently got a call from an unknown number with a familiar voice. It was Julie. We were ecstatic to hear from her, and she told us that she was back in our hometown and wanted to meet up. Steph and I agreed that we would be as welcoming as possible and tried to put our differences aside. On the day of our meetup, we went to a nice restaurant and saw our daughter for the first time in 2 years. The dinner was going quite well, and it felt like Julie was a lot more friendly to us than before, but while we were having dessert, she asked us if we could help her out again. Eager to listen, but with a shred of doubt in my heart, I heard her out. She wanted more money. I asked her what she needed it for, and she didn't specify, saying that it would just help her. When I asked her how much money, she asked for $20,000. My heart was sinking, and without thinking, I simply grunted no. I was expecting Julie to argue or fight back, but I looked up to see tears in her eyes, and she quietly said, "I understand, Dad. I'm sorry." and left the building. Steph is furious at me for going against the plan of being welcoming, but I just feel hurt that Julie came back to us with a demand for money. Was it the right call? Update 1. Hey everybody, a new piece of information came up. Steph was catching up with one of Julie's childhood friends, Becky. She was at Julie's wedding when they met by chance at a local grocery, and she said a few things that didn't add up. Firstly, she said that she hoped Julie would find a better man, and also how she was planning on catching up with our daughter again next week. However, when she saw that Steph looked bewildered by the whole thing, Becky got awkward and clammed up. Huh? Did this mean that Julie was back for good? Steph took down the name of the hotel Jules was staying at, and we're going to go there tomorrow to hear the full story. Update 2. I will kill James if I see him. That's the takeaway after we spoke to Julie. There's so much to unpack, but let's start from the top. During their teen years, James basically emotionally manipulated and guilted Julie into marriage, and also trained her to say exactly what we wanted to hear to gain our trust and the college fund. Julie said she had told him about the fact that we saved up for her education, something we had told her openly, and then said they should use it to live their best life. They got married, went to LA, and blew through that money fast. James also made up a lot of lies about me and Steph being toxic to him and forced Julie to stay no contact with us. After a while, James and Julie were both working dead-end jobs and living in a crummy apartment, and Julie eventually discovered that James was cheating on her. She was unhealthily dependent on James and struggled a lot mentally before coming back home. When she reached out to us, she needed that $20,000 to pay off some credit card debt that James had racked up, and then wanted to start afresh. But she was too embarrassed to tell us what had happened. We had an emotional reconciliation, and she's staying with us for now. Oh, and Becky thought that Jules had told us all of this already at the grocery store, so no wonder she was confused. Apparently that was the plan for dinner, but things went awry. Update 3. It's been a few months since my last update, so I'll keep it short. Steph and I are really happy. Julie started community college with a course on fashion design, and we're closer to each other than before. Thank you everyone for your kind comments. NTA, but NAH after reading your updates. Julie was emotionally abused by James, and I don't think she's to blame. I also commend Steph and you as parents. You're more understanding than mine, LOL. NTA, I think you did the right thing at that moment, and that led to you knowing the full story. If you just given your daughter the money, I don't think she would have reconnected with you guys as she did. Next story. So my mom passed away from pancreatic cancer back in June. And to be honest, I don't think I'll move past it for a long time. My mom was always there for me, and we spent so much time together. Her death was unexpected and fast. It blindsided me, and I haven't been the same since then. My dad and I haven't been close at all, really, but I'm staying with him while I search for a place to move out. I've been helping him with bills such as rent and utilities. However, what he did on New Year's Eve really caught me off guard. I had my dad come and pick me up from work since I was feeling sick and I didn't feel comfortable driving home. When I walked to the car, this woman was in the car. I just stood there in shock. Let's call her Becky. He says, "This is Becky. She's just a friend." Yeah, right. I say, "Hello," and look out the window because I was trying to mentally process everything. He keeps trying to get me to talk, but I don't want to. You're just going to bring this random woman you're seeing back to the place after my mom passed, not even a year ago? I get home and I immediately go to my room and cry. I didn't even go downstairs after that. I hear them downstairs talking and I just get more and more angry. I get my phone and I send him a text more or so stating that this is really upsetting me. And this more or less ruined my New Year's Eve. He offered to come upstairs to talk to me about it, but I didn't want to talk and just locked myself in my room. Am I overreacting? Did I have a right to feel this way and to tell my dad that this is bothering me? Or should I just get over it? It feels too soon to move on from this, but I'm not my father. I plan on moving out in a few months, but I just feel like this is disrespectful as hell, considering I live there too and help with bills. Please read the edits. Edit. I'm going to talk to my dad about it soon. It was wrong of me to blow him off like that on New Year's Eve, but I was just so overwhelmed since it was the first New Year's without my mom. Edit 2. Becky is more than a friend. I asked my dad shortly after posting this. Edit 3. I wanted to keep this post neutral for the most part so that people wouldn't just automatically paint me to be not an a-hole, but my dad has treated my mother like shit throughout their relationship. He would regularly rant about her to his friends and family and speak badly about her, and possibly to this Becky girl as well. My mother did nothing but love and accept him and would regularly cook dinner for him and such, and she did not deserve to be talked badly about or treated this way. My mother and I were planning on moving out and leaving him there, but she got sick so suddenly and passed away. He's known this woman before my mom passed away, as I've seen her before. It honestly seems like he waited for my mother to pass away in order to bring this girl into our house. I don't know if any of this matters, but it very much hurts. And if I'm an a-hole for feeling this way about it, then so be it. And I can be an a-hole in an apartment or something where I can grieve my mom's passing alone. Edit 4. My dad brought her over again and I completely lost it. So I guess you can consider this talking about it. I started bawling my eyes out and he came upstairs to talk to me. Mind you, I am sick with flu as well. He says he doesn't want to anger me, but the fact that he brings her over here and she's downstairs watching the television that I paid for and watching the cable that I pay for is freaking hurtful. He says he's sorry, but I honestly think he's bluffing and I honestly do not forgive him. I'm going to pack up my mom's belongings and I'm going to move out of here and leave nothing of hers. That is my mother's stuff, not Becky's. I came downstairs and she's eating on my mother's plates that she bought. I don't give a shit about Becky. He treated my mother like absolute garbage and he doesn't deserve an ounce of grace or sympathy. But don't worry, he'll get his freaking karma for the way he treated my mother and for what he has done to me. NTA, it is sad, but some men cannot be alone and move on quickly after the death of a spouse. Two of my best friends each lost their mothers and both of their fathers got married a year later. So, not to each other, they both married other women. They started dating these women soon after their death. Both of my friends had a very hard time with this, and I don't blame them. It took years for them to forgive their fathers and have a decent relationship with them again. Don't let anyone tell you that you are an a-hole for your feelings about this. You are grieving and you never ever get over a parent's death. My dad died almost 4 years ago and it still hurts every day. And side note, my mom has no desire to date ever again. She said, once you've had the best, no need to try again. NAH. I think you're mad that his grieving process is different from yours. I am so very sorry for your loss. I think you are both at two different stages. I don't know if 6 months is enough for me, but it may be for him. He is not being disrespectful by introducing his new friend. You had a knee-jerk reaction, and that is natural too, but you will be TA if you push it further. Speak to him about how you feel seeing this person and why you feel that way. And listen to him and how he feels as well. If you are an adult, please keep in mind that he is allowing you to stay in his house. So if he wants guests, He is not wrong to invite her over. Be polite. This woman is not an enemy. NaH. While you don't get to tell your father how to grieve or what his grief looks like, your reaction came from an honest place of grief, shock, and disappointment. Your feelings are valid, even if your reaction was emotionally driven. Apologize to him for the way you responded. Be honest about why you had those big feelings. And resolve to him and yourself that you'll find better ways to communicate and cope. I'm sorry for your loss. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.